Just a little more than 24 hours after shots rang out at the Super Bowl celebration in Kansas City, we're learning new details about the suspects and the moments leading up to the tragedy. Police now say one person was killed and 22 others were injured. 3 people were taken into custody, but one has since been released. Police say the remaining 2 suspects are juveniles. Officers now believe the shooting was the result of an argument between several people. The person killed was identified as Lisa Lopez Galvan, a local radio DJ and beloved mother. So how does a community recover from yet another mass shooting? Let's ask the expert. Joining me now is psychologist Dr. Katherine Kuhlman with Kuhlman Psychology and Consulting. Katherine, first off, we cannot imagine something that was supposed to be so celebratory. How does the moment go from pure jubilation to terror and running for your life?
So our brains and our bodies are very interesting. And so a lot of times when you talk to victims who have survived mass shootings like this, or just a large scale shooting where a lot of people are involved, is that our brain engages in some cognitive processing errors because we as humans simply are not primed for experiencing this type of thing.
Yeah.
You know, maybe if you're law enforcement, maybe if you're military, you're on edge and you know what the signs to look out for, and
you've been trained. Yeah.
Right. But most of us are not there. And so our brains, for a couple of seconds, actually question what's happening and look for alternatives. And so a lot of victims will say, you know, I thought it was just sounds from the parade, or I thought it was the movie. I thought that was playing in the background. I thought it was 4D.
Right.
It took me a while to realize what was actually happening. And that's where that transition happens. It's very scary.
Yeah, and so surreal. Like, I can't believe it's happening.
Exactly.
You know, I was reading, for the area of Kansas City alone, this marks the 25th mass shooting in just 5 years, and it's the second one just this year alone. So, you know, it's a lot to process. Describe what the city, the area is going through, this whole community, and how do you even regain a sense of normalcy?
You know, the psychological footprint of any situation like this always surpasses the medical footprint because so many people are impacted, and not just the people that are present, but also their family members, people across the nation, anyone who's experienced something similar in the past. And so it's the community, it's the state, it's the whole nation, right, that is impacted by this stuff. And I don't know that you can ever truly say we go back to normal. I think it's our definition of normal that kind of changes. Yeah. And so it's more, how do we regain a sense of safety and autonomy in our own life? Mm-hmm. What do we need to do to feel like we can remain in control? Mm-hmm. And how do we go back to living our day-to-day lives not in a hypervigilant and paranoid state that this is going to happen again?
Right, right. But just, you know, more of an awareness of your surroundings and, you know, just to be on alert.
Exactly.
Okay, the shooting in Kansas City came just days after another shooting at a church in Houston. Police say 36-year-old Genesee Yvonne Marino walked into Lakewood Church and began shooting, wounding one man before being shot and killed by police officers. Marino's 7-year-old son, who was also shot during that incident, but it's still unclear if he was shot by his mother or by police. This afternoon, he remains in critical condition at a local hospital. Police are still investigating why this happened. So let's go into the mind and motive of this particular case. Marino has both a criminal history and record of mental illness. Now, her mother-in-law called this a completely preventable horror, and I want to read for our viewers a part of what she wrote in a Facebook post on Monday. Mental illness is real illness, and when family members seek emergency protections, they're not doing so for their own sake, but for the sake of the person who is ill. So, Katherine, how important is it for family members to seek these kinds of protections, and how do they do that?
So it's really interesting because patients have rights, you know, and so family members can only do so much. And so the threshold there is that if you're a family member and you notice concerning behaviors, mental illness that seems to be impacting a person's judgment, you think that they might engage in some, you know, aggression or violent behavior like this, family members really need to be thinking about that imminent threat and contacting law enforcement right away. Because in order for somebody to be placed on a 72-hour hold, it depends on the state of exactly what they'll call it, but some kind of involuntary hospitalization where they are fully further evaluated, whether or not court-ordered treatment should occur. there really needs to be that threshold there of, are they a harm to self or others?
Yeah.
Because, again, you can't force somebody unless that threshold is met, but that's the exact emergency protections that have to be in place.
Yeah, and a lot of times, some of these people don't want or don't know how to help themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's where, family has to step in. Another thing I want to bring up is just, sadly, mass shootings, it is not immune anymore these days. I mean, from churches to schools, obviously parades, and you've also been involved in the Aurora shooting that happened in Colorado years ago. You helped first responders, you helped people who needed help. What are we as a society to take from this? What are we to learn from these mass shootings? Because sadly, they keep happening.
So there's some really great resources out there. I would encourage people to look at, the FBI has a report on what we call pre-attack indicators. And these are basically red flags that anybody in the community can be looking out for. So these could be, seriously mentally ill folks, threats of violence or confrontation. We're really concerned when we see like a rapid uptick in an interest in firearms or weapons, or a rapid interest in mass shooters. And it's really, really important that this information gets communicated to law enforcement, because they have the ability to respond, and they're getting information from lots of people.
Yeah, yeah.
So talking and reporting it is the absolute best thing. Don't let things slide or make excuses for bad behavior.
Okay, good advice. Thank you so much.